If you're a golfer, I guarantee you will have been through this predicament. Picture the scene. You've gone down to your local golf shop. You've got a little bit of extra money and you want to go and buy some new clubs. You start having a look at some. You go out, you have a fitting and the irons or clubs, whatever you're buying is working perfectly in that session. Every shot you hit, going where you want, you're getting good numbers, the fitter is telling you everything is looking perfect. Then you head back to your local golf course. And to your surprise, the shots you were hitting in your fitting, you can't seem to replicate now you're at the golf course. They're going left, they're going right, they're going shorter. They're just not doing what they did in the fitting. Now, this could be because you've fallen for this golfing con. So for a long time, before we saw demo clubs appear, a lot of manufacturers had to put tape on the irons, whether it was a wood, an iron, a wedge or a putter. They would put a layer of tape over the club face and generally over the sole of the club, and this is because they didn't have demo clubs. They wanted to potentially use stock items, tape them up, and then those were the clubs that would be sold. So if they didn't have the tape on them, you would get scratches, you would get scuffs, and you would get unwanted damage, which would then lower the price of the item that they would be trying to sell. Now, that's all well and good for the retailer because they're getting a product that isn't damaged, so you, as the customer, get something that is fresh, sparkly and new. But it has repercussions when you actually hit a golf ball with tape on the club face. And today, I'm going to show you how drastic some of those repercussions can be. And if this is happening to you, make sure you don't do it. So now we're going to hit some shots. We've selected a Mizuno 7-iron, and this one to start off with has no tape on the face. I'm going to hit about 10 shots, get some data. We want to be looking at things like the spin numbers, the launch numbers, the carry numbers. We'll take a look at those so we know where our baseline is. Then we're going to hit 10 more shots with the face covered up with tape to then see how drastic the difference is. So we've got our brown tape, and literally the process would be, like I said earlier, it was all about covering the club face up so it just didn't mark. I used to hate that bit, biting it off every time I worked in a shop. But you would, depending on the retailer you worked for and how stringent they were with their tape supply, you were either a heavy taper or only a light amount of tape. But it was basically just to get, and it obviously alters if you're on range mats as well because there's going to be more scuff. So you would see something like this where the sole's covered and then the club face is now covered. That there with one layer, probably after 2 shots you're going to break through the tape. So I mean, we were always putting 3-4 layers of tape across the face when I worked in a golf shop, just to make sure that if a punter was out there, they weren't actually going to cause any damage to the golf club. You could always take offence as well if you would have taped the hosel for someone. You would have known the level of player that you were dealing with. But there we go, we've got 4 layers of tape across the face now, some on the sole. Even there's like little air pockets. Is that going to have an impact on it? Is obviously they should pop after a hit, but even running your finger across the face, I can feel the groove like very lightly, but nothing what you feel when obviously there's no tape on there. But let's hit some. Let's see what our findings are saying. So 10 shots now with the tape on, and even just looking down on that brings back memories. And one thing that I've just thought about is that it's going to deaden the feel as well. So if you had a sort of harsh feeling club, it would have probably given it a sort of softer, nicer feeling as well, in a way, because it wouldn't have been so responsive maybe on missed strikes as well. But let's see what we get here with 10 shots. So we've hit 10 shots there with tape and without tape. And the differences, you know, they are there. Now, when we look at them, I thought they were going to be a little bit more drastic, but I'll explain why these differences could cause issues for you when you are buying golf clubs. Firstly, if we look at the ball speed, with the tape, we had 120 miles an hour as opposed to that 118, so 2 miles per hour faster with the tape on. We see that it launches a little bit higher at 22 degrees as opposed to 21. The spin has dropped down, not as drastically as I thought it would do. It's gone down to 5,000 RPMs is where it was at 5,400 beforehand. But we're seeing faster ball speeds, higher launch, less spin, which is why then we see more distance in terms of carry. We're seeing 6 yards in terms of the difference. Now, I was expecting to see about 10 or 15, which when I've done this in the past, when I have just tried this and been messing around, I have seen that. But it is that difference. In some cases, some people might find that it will be 10, 15 yards. And that presents a problem because A, if you go away from your fitting thinking that you're hitting 7-iron 174, you then go to the golf course and actually you're only hitting it 168, your gapping's out there. When you're hitting into greens, you're going to be coming up short half a club sometimes, which is already a problem because 82% of golfers already come up short even if they didn't do this test. Secondly, if you buy your clubs on these numbers, you could then actually be putting the wrong clubs in at the other ends of the bag. So depending on what that wedge goes, you might then get the wrong gap wedge, you might get the wrong lob wedge based on the number that that pitching wedge was going with the tape on, and vice versa. You might have a 5-iron and then your next club be a 4 hybrid. You're thinking that your 5-iron goes 200 when actually it's only going 185, and then you're getting gaps that just don't match up, and all of a sudden you could have really large points where there isn't a yardage that you have covered because you didn't get the right fitting process done. So make sure if you are going down to a retailer and you're trying golf clubs out and they put tape on the face, and maybe look at going somewhere else. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed that video, and as well, why not check out another golf con just here, and we'll see you very soon.